All right, I did my best on this one to, and I think I got everything to redact it enough. But I also want it to make sense to everybody because this is a very good example of how a school district will use a reevaluation and use the English language in a subtle way in order to provide a narrative that is going to be the basis of their justification for a more restrictive setting. Okay? And so I can see that written all over this reevaluation in the areas shared by the parent. And in my viewpoint, I mean, I would consider this predetermination. I think that they have had enough communication with the parent leading up to this reevaluation that the parent has rejected or wanted to think about, which the school system didn't like. And so, therefore, because the school system didn't like that and they couldn't sucker the parent into the more restrictive placement, then they're going to do it through the means of the reevaluation. And through the means of the reevaluation and through their narrative, the story they're going to tell and spin about the child's behavior is going to be their reason that they use, their justification for an upcoming determination by the school side of the IEP team that he will no longer be in his homeschool placement. And I highly suspect I don't think that they're leaning toward residential, and it wouldn't be residential. I think that what you're confusing as residential would be a day program. It would be a therapeutic day program to where he would just go to school during the day at this state. I mean, it's a nonprofit facility. It's a private facility, but it still uses state funding in order to support the day program. I'm aware of it, and no, they don't offer dyslexia services at this day program. It's a behavioral program, and which means that the academic aspect is muted. The academic aspect of the child's program is diminished, and the behavioral aspect is what's dealt with, and in my viewpoint, it's not dealt with in the way it needs to be dealt with. Because at what point does the child transition back to the public setting, and then how does that transition occur to where any success is made in this therapeutic setting then translates over to the school setting? And if a school can't sort of explain that to me in a very, very concise manner, then all you're doing is kicking a can and tossing the kid over to a place where typical peers don't exist. And it's just a high priced way to get these children out of the public education setting. Now, that's one option, but what I really think that what they're gearing to is that this particular school system has their own standalone special needs school, and it's really close to a public school to where they can sort of justify that they do have access to general education peers, because they'll trot them over every once in a while to this public education school that's not connected, but close enough to where they can make those justifications. That's where I think that they're leaning. Which if you don't like that, then they'll bring you back to this therapeutic day program. But I also don't know, because I haven't looked into it, whether or not they have exhausted the things that they could do inside the public education setting, because we have had periods of success, according to what I've read. And I also have more knowledge about the situation because, I represented this child prior a few years ago. So I know that it can be done and can be done correctly. So I'd like to know where the gaps are and where they screwed up, because what we put in place worked if they would have committed to it. But that sort of tends to be the thing about special education, is that you can get it on the right path, but then there's just natural things that occur during the life of a child's school year. Staff changes, administrative changes, transitioning to a new school. All of those things can disrupt the good things that we put into place. So you always got to be watching. You always got to be mindful. And adherence to any behavior plans is going to be key to success.